Teddy, please.
All right, thank you. Bună ziua to everyone. Welcome. I'm Teddy. As Professor Mindirigiu introduced, I'm one of the people who started public forum debate in Romania. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm always happy to be anywhere public forum debate is being practiced because I think it's such a useful skill. I'm especially happy to be here with Mircea and especially happy that you guys are continuing, given that, led by Professor Mindirigiu, you all were the first ones to embrace the public forum movement and the only ones to do so before we went nationals. So it's a real honor for me to be here. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what public forum is, and then we're going to talk about why public forum. So let's start with the what. Public forum is a debate activity that is done with partners. Specifically, you have debates between two teams of two. So at the beginning, you're going to vote for a Romanian public forum debate topic on a current event, an issue of current events that you all find interesting. And so, unlike many other leagues, Romanian public forum debate is a democratic league. So the topics that ultimately get chosen are the ones you and the professors actually want to debate and judge. And that produces much better debates. Now, once the topic is decided and released, you're going to have usually more than a month to prepare arguments on that topic, both for pro and for con, with a partner. And so specifically, you're going to receive a resolution or a statement, something like resolved, online school is good. And then you'll have to argue the pro that it's good, and you'll have to prepare a speech for the con that it's bad. After you have your preparation, you can begin to attend tournaments. And this goes anything from the regional tournaments to national tournaments to even the transatlantic debate opportunities. In public forum debate, there are 4 speeches and crossfires, but they're basically 4 short speeches, no speeches longer than 4 minutes, and you're going to be alternating with the other team. Specifically, the speeches are, first, you have a constructive speech. And so this is a speech where you present your opening arguments. You're allowed to simply read from a 4-minute script. The point isn't to memorize all of your nitty-gritty evidence. The point is simply to practice to be able to present it convincingly to the judge. And so the first speakers, so 1 member on each team, will be giving the constructive speech. After the pair of constructive speeches, the pair of your opening arguments, you're then going to enter into a crossfire. The 2 first speakers, the speakers who just spoke, are going to debate each other in a crossfire, where they ask 3-minute questions alternating back and forth. Then you have a rebuttal. The rebuttal speech is a 4-minute speech where the next speakers, the people who haven't spoken yet in the debate, get to attack the arguments of the opposing team and to explain to the judge why they're wrong and why it's important to vote for their side. And very important, in public forum, it's all about attacking the arguments. You should never be attacking the opposing people. Then you have another round of crossfire, and then you have the summary and final focus speeches, which is where you basically explain why your arguments are the most important in the round and why the judge should vote for your side. So this is something very important and unique to public forum debate. The way that you persuade your judge to vote for you and your team is that you have to prove to them that your topic will create the best outcomes for everyone involved, for society, for the world, for whoever it is. And this idea is called the impact. And it's a very important reason why to practice public forum. So I'm gonna, in the interest of keeping this short and providing time for questions, I'm going to now explain why is it a good idea to invest time into this activity? And the first reason is pretty simple. The idea is the new bullet. You know, perhaps even a century ago, if you wanted to understand the course of history, you'd have to look at wars or bullets. No longer. Today, if you want to change the world for the better, or change your community for the better, if you want to protect and prevent from negative change, if you want to defend yourself and your loved ones, if you want to persuade others, to mobilize them to support your cause, your work, your ideas, you need to inspire by presenting ideas convincingly. And to craft and to present these ideas is what debate teaches. After all, there's a reason why the most effective politicians and most effective lawyers have all had training in debate or rhetoric or speech or some other adjacent activity. But of course, we also have to consider why public forum specifically. Now, I've done British parliamentary. I even got to the finals round at a Yale tournament. I've studied world schools, and I have to say, each type of debate makes its own contribution. And public forum has four main contributions, I would say. One of them is this idea of the impact. Public forum prompts you not just to try to prove that you're right. It's not enough to be right. You also have to prove that what you're saying matters. You have to explain to the judge, so what? And this is really important. First of all, there's a civic benefit, right? Public forum teaches you to focus on making the better world, on making the world better, not just on proving that you're correct. It goes one step further. There's also a personal reason why this is beneficial. In the real world, many people will not necessarily care whether you're correct. Of course, it's important to be correct, but they will also want to know how this applies to them. They want to know the so what. For example, if you're a chemist, you might be able to convince some person that your research is new and that your research is new and is correct. But they're not going to see a reason to support you unless they understand the benefits of that chemistry research, as a hypothetical example. Maybe it'll save lives, it'll improve medicine, it'll make plastics more environmentally friendly. And so public forum teaches you to go that extra step to mobilize support. Another reason why public forum is so beneficial is the research component. You have a month, sometimes more than a month, to prepare for topics. You get to really look and see what the journalistic articles are, what the news reports say. You get to have a good idea of what's actually happening in your current events. So in a lot of debate formats, sometimes confuse between ideas and words. Ideas are not just words. You need words, but you also need substance. And public forum pushes you to develop both, because it pushes you to do this research, to gather this evidence, and to have ideas that would work in the real world, not solely hypotheticals. Then there's the issue of being concise. You're never going to be able to speak for more than 4 minutes at a time in public forum. 4 minutes sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. And so public forum teaches you to pack a lot of ideas in a very limited space and do so in a way that's clear and convincing. And that's a hard skill, and that takes a lot of practice. But that's a skill that's very, very beneficial for life, because most people make their first impressions, it's scientifically proven, within 2 to 3 minutes. So even if you're attending some great conference and you in theory have an hour to speak, you need to already have them interested and somewhat convinced in the first 2 to 3 minutes of your speech. And public forum is a great tool to help you with that. Lastly, public forum and what we're offering here is English language. We're also looking to offer Romanian language versions. The point is, you're going to have access not just to Romanian language public forum debate. You're also going to have access to the English language. And practicing the art of persuasion in English is very important, because English is the lingua franca of the world, right? You go to the United States, you go to Germany, you go to Britain, everywhere outside Romania, they speak English. And so it's going to help you reach more people. And so let me make a conclusion with this statement. Public forum is not only for aspiring lawyers or politicians. It's really for everyone. Think about if you want to be a poet, think about the poet who, after taking public forum, can now express their ideas more elegantly, more succinctly, more compactly into a single piece of literary work. Think about the chemist or engineer or scientist who, in addition to being able to do great research, can now convince others why that's important, can attract more funding, more support, can attract support from the English language world. Think of, in truth, all jobs, whatever you want to be in life, you're going to stand to benefit from being able to persuade people in more than one language. And even if you're a parent, as we can imagine, you stand to benefit because public forum will help you persuade quickly, and children often need to be persuaded in their very short attention spans. The point is, for all these reasons, you stand to benefit from being in this transformative movement of public forum debate. So I hope in these 15 minutes that I've been able to lay out a little bit of an idea of what public forum debate is and what are the benefits of practicing public forum debate. There are, of course, a lot more benefits. And those I leave for you to ask me questions about, or I leave for you to discover in the course of public forum debate. The last thing I will say is the Romanian public forum debate community is a great resource. And we really have people who are extremely committed and knowledgeable and who can really provide a lot of support. I know Professor Mindirigiu has a lot of knowledge about public forum debate. He's very committed to it. He's a very supportive person in general. I also know that we have involvement and ever-growing involvement from Horace Mann School, one of the top schools in America, where we can judge tournaments, we can teach. And so if there are any questions about public forum debate and they don't get answered in this session, I really encourage you to just email us. And so I'll give you one email that you can email, which is 2021rpfd@gmail.com. Another thing is, if you want to learn more about this and you want, for example, access to the compendium that we've written about public forum debate, you can just email us and we'll actually give you, because it's on Amazon, Amazon has a minimum price and whatnot, we'll actually give it to you for free if that's something you're interested in. So yeah, I open the floor to any questions, and good on you for participating in this transformative movement.
Teddy, thank you very much for choosing Constanța. It was your choice, and for the great job and the wonderful idea you had. I want to ask you something, and maybe some of our students and teachers want to know. A debate in general and public forum has a very important place in education in the United States. Please tell us something about debate and the importance of debate in educating students and in engaging teachers and students in a very interesting extracurricular activity.
Definitely. So what I will say in the United States, first off, debate is massive. I mean, there are tournaments with thousands and tens of thousands of public forum debaters. The nationals started off with 5,000 people qualifying. So, sorry, 5,000 teams qualifying. And so public forum certainly plays a big role just in terms of sheer magnitude. But I think the role of public forum is much more than that. I'd say a couple of things. One thing is public forum really teaches leadership. And it teaches leadership of both, well, teachers already know leadership, but it engages students and teachers more closely. When you spend a lot of time working with your partners, doing prep, practicing, debating after school, having fun. I mean, debate is really fun. And so when you spend all this time having fun while learning with each other, it's a great tool to get teachers and students more closely bonded. It's a great tool to get students and other students more closely bonded. It forms a stronger community. It also is a really great way to expand on learning. So a lot of principles that are taught in anything from history to science are principles that public forum will reinforce, right? Public forum will reinforce writing skills. Public forum can reinforce even a certain way of analyzing the world in a rigorous decision-making way. What is the impact of this? What's the impact of that? How can we calculate which impact is more important? Which side of the debate we should choose? And so it complements, it adds on to all of the great work that teachers do in school. And yeah, and so what I would say is it's a great opportunity to complement the education system, and it works wonders. And there's a reason why in the United States, after students took public forum debate for only 6 months, their SAT scores went up by 20%. And the SAT is kind of the equivalent of the BAC in Romania. And so it just goes to show how public forum debate also has benefits that carry over into the education system.
I invited you at a radio show 2 years ago, and you said something very interesting, that you learn in debate the difference between empathy and sympathy. Can you tell us something about that?
Of course. Actually, I was hoping someone was going to ask this question, so thank you. So there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is when you feel pity for someone. You feel like, oh, it's whatever has happened to them is so negative. It's so bad and I feel sorry. Empathy is much more than sympathy. Empathy teaches you to inhabit the other person's mind, to view the world the way they view the world. And public forum really teaches that distinction, because one thing that happens in public forum is you have to analyze actors. So in other words, if you're doing a foreign policy topic, you're going to learn to analyze what Saudi Arabia is thinking or what the United States is thinking. Even more broadly, every single debate round is an exercise in empathy with the judge. In order to win, you have to imagine what is important to the judge. How can I persuade from the judge's perspective that this idea, that my ideas are more important than my opponent's? And so that teaches you empathy, right? Thinking the way other people think. One might even say tactical empathy, because you can understand the way other people think without necessarily feeling sorry for them, right? And so I think that that distinction is crucial. Too many times in politics or in life, we feel sympathy for someone and we try to help them, but we don't understand how, because we don't really understand what the problem is in the first place. We can't imagine things from their point of view. Public forum gives you that extra tool. It helps you understand things from many, many different perspectives, from the judge's perspective, from the other team's perspective as well. Every time you're in a debate round, you want to anticipate what the other team is going to say, how they're going to try to counter argument against you. You have to understand multiple perspectives on a topic, the pro side, the con side, the opinions of X ideology, Y ideology, Z ideology. So I definitely say public forum is essential to adding the empathy, to turning that sim prefix into an M prefix, so to speak.
Teddy, you told us something about the judge's perspective. Teacher Dan Zamfir asked me if the judge must be a tabula rasa, or as in world schools, must be a medium educated individual. If Dan Zamfir wants to rephrase the question.
Hello again. So I'm quite in touch with the world school debate format. So that's why I'm here, because I try to understand and to make connection between the two styles. But at some point, I see this style, public forum debate, similar with Karl Popper debate, which I have some idea about it. And in Karl Popper debate, the judge must be tabula rasa, 0. So, And by reading the materials that Eduard gave to me, sent to me, I didn't understand very well if the judge it's the same person as in Karl Popper's style, a zero knowledge person, and the judge must have the balance of the match, or if we have a different perspective similar with the world school debate style, where the judge must be a regular person who read the paper every day.
Yeah, okay. So that's a really great question. And I'm going to say the answer is, if you can imagine Karl Popper being here and World Schools being here, Public Forum is where my nose is. So it's like right in the middle. And I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. I guess when we talk about whether the judge should be tabula rasa or not, there are a couple of criteria we're really discussing. One of them is what knowledge they're aware of, right? So do they pretend to not know anything about the world whatsoever? Or do they, aspire to be a regular middle-educated citizen who understands, who reads the press and is basically caught up with world affairs? The other is also one of decision-making. Do they make their decision as someone who already has an opinion or as someone who is completely blank? And so in public forum debate, I'd say judges, it's a good idea for judges to have some amount of familiarity with world affairs, simply because the time format is fairly limited. So it's a good idea, for example, if we're debating online school, the judge should know what online school is. The debater will talk about the merits and the demerits of online school, but they might not necessarily recap the history of online school, for example. When it comes to decision-making, public forum leans more on the tabula rasa side of things. We think that ultimately, we have to remember that the debaters have relatively limited say in what topic they're debating. The topic is decided by the flip of a coin. So not the topic, the side of the topic is decided by the flip of the coin. So they could be pro, they could be con. It depends on what the coin wants, pretty much. And so we have to remember that we need to set aside all of our biases. As a public forum judge, we set aside our biases about the topic, our pre-existing opinions of, oh, we favor online school, or we don't favor online school, or we think this argument in online school is really strong, and if they don't mention the argument, then they're bad. All of that we should put to a side, and we should focus on the impacts and the arguments that the debaters gave us. And when we make a decision, we compare what the pro is saying, what the con is saying. We compare the rationales that pro and con has given for us to vote for one of those sides. And we make a decision based on what happened in the debate round. So I hope that answers the question, but if there's any clarification, I'd love to clarify.
Thank you. Yes, now I have more context and I have more information. Thank you very much. I give the floor for someone else.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Zamfir. That's a really good question. Thank you. Professor Ciulu.
Thank you for your speech. It was a really interesting speech and also very structured. I will ask you about empathy with the judge, with the jury. Isn't it a flaw in this process? Because empathizing with someone is a process of imagination. We do not know in what situation is the person, what he really thinks in that situation, what he really feels in that situation, and we do not know what will be his behavior in his situation. But we imagine, because we have experience, we know ourselves, we know that if we were in that situation, we will feel something, we will think something, and we will have a behavior. And then we put that in the back of the jury. We put this on him. We project this from our mind to his mind. Isn't this a flaw of empathizing with the judges or with the jury?
I see. That's very interesting. So I'll say a couple of things. One thing is, to some extent, of course, any empathizing is an act of imagination. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the robot paradox, the idea that everyone other than you could be a robot and might not have any real emotions, and there's no way for you to know. So I guess to that extent, there is a part of imagination. What I will say is a first level, a beginner level of empathy will certainly involve you projecting what you think onto the judge. I mean, that might be the first level, that might be the first step, but that's not what ultimately public forum aspires to. And so what I will say is, when I, for example, am debating in a round and I want to imagine what the judge thinks, I don't say I don't necessarily say if I was the judge, I would think this, because I know I am a 17-year-old, right? The judge is not a 17-year-old. The judge is not me. So what I try to do is I try to imagine, both based on my own internal state, but also based on my previous experience with judges. And that's something that comes over time. So when I say empathizing is important, it's not about projecting what you think onto the judge. It's about, from past experience and from your own self, making an educated guess as to what the judge will think and what's going to persuade the judge. I will say also, in public forum, there's this idea of preferences. So some judges, and it's something that is encouraged, some judges will, before a debate, give a little bit of background about how they judge rounds. And so, for example, when I judge, I might say, I like when your speeches are really clear and you give me clear reasons to vote for you, and that's what I'm looking for. And so the judge is also giving you some information upon which to construct your educated guess. So in truth, in public forum, once you have experience, once you get to that level of really understanding the art, it's not just projection. There are three sources of information: what the judge told you, your past experience with judges, and the general idea of how humans work. I hope that allays your concerns or answer your question.
If I may say, you pointed to the clarity of the language, to the beauty of the language when you speak. So you, as a judge, will appreciate the clarity and the beauty of his language. But that is a value of his language, value of clarity. If we must renounce the truth of the language, because that was you proposing at first, we go beyond the truth. We go to where we are looking for pragmatism, what he really wants. So if we renounce to the truth, why clarity is better than the truth?
Okay, yeah, allow me to clarify. Compared to other types of debate, I'd say that public forum has a much greater emphasis on the truth, because we're a type of debate that really focuses on evidence, on research. You have to research your arguments. You can't just say logic. And so that's when I say to move beyond, I don't mean to ignore. I mean that the baseline is that everything you're saying is researched and documented and the truth. That's the baseline. All of the arguments you're bringing should have that. Then you go on to explain the impact, to explain why what you're saying is not only correct, but also why it's important.
Thank you for the clarification. It's very good right now.
All right. Thank you for your questions, Professor Ciulu.
Teddy, when you speak about these things that make public forum special and distinct from other debate formats. Please tell us something about the way the judge, the criteria on which the judge decides who wins the match. Because in world schools, there are three main criteria: style, contention, and strategy. How does a judge in public forum decide? Based on what?
All right. So in public forum, the judge will really give you two dimensions of feedback. They will give you the win. So they'll decide which team wins, which team loses. And then they'll give speaker points. So the criteria of style, for example, is something the judge would convey through speaker points, which are points given to individuals based on how prettily they speak. The win in public forum, the win-loss decision is much more important. And so that's the one I'm going to talk mostly about. In the win-loss decision, the judge is going to decide based on whichever team proves their side of the argument has the biggest impact. So if we're debating on online school and the pro side makes a more compelling case, a more compelling set of arguments, and explains to the judge why the positive impacts that they present of online school are more important than any potential downsides, the judge is going to vote for that team. So it's about the impacts. Like when I judge, I will, on a piece of paper, when I make my decision, I will literally circle all of the impacts. I will put them against each other, and then I'll consider them. Of course, the judge considers in this process, built into this process, is more than only impact. What do I mean? For example, if a debater is unclear, if their speech isn't clear, the judge won't fully understand their argument. So that's why clarity is important. But in terms of the win decision or style is important still, because if you have a very bad style, the judge won't understand what you're saying and then cannot consider your ideas. Even something that is important is the proof, because when I compare impacts, I compare both the size of the impact, but also the likelihood that the impacts happen. So you could be arguing for some really big impact, say something outlandish like online school will lead to nuclear war. And sure, you might have the biggest impact in the debate, but you also have the least likely impact. And you're not going to be able to prove it's true. And when I'm the judge, I'm going to consider that as a very, very small impact because I'm taking into account the truth value. So there's a lot of things that get woven in, but ultimately public forum is about which side of the debate will lead to the best world. Which side will create the best world? If I vote pro and the pro side of the resolution gets passed, will that create a better world than the con side? And in making this decision, the judge should be considering the arguments the debaters bring forth. So a little bit of background knowledge, of course, they should have on the topic, but they should be considering mostly what the debaters are giving them.
Thank you, Teddy, for your answer. Anyone who wants to ask questions, you have a great opportunity. Teddy is here for us.
I have another question. Okay. I want to know from what age the students in US starts the debate career?
Of course. So the answer is many ages. I have friends who started debate in 9th or 10th grade. I started debate in 6th grade. So 6th grade is the start of middle school in the United States. I think kind of like Gymnasiu, but like 1 year later. Then there are some debaters who even start as early as 5th grade, 4th grade. And so I know, right? And so the first time I saw a 4th grade debater debating, it's like, wow, this is really early. But the great thing about public forum is it's really accessible to almost any age. If you dedicate the time, if you dedicate the focus, I have seen 4th grade debaters defeat 9th grade debaters. If you do the work, if you're a debater and you do the work and you understand the impacts and you understand how to compare the arguments, how to persuade the judge, you can win at any age. And of course, 4th graders defeating 9th graders doesn't happen every day. That's an exceptional example that I've raised. But the answer is certainly public forum is accessible to middle schoolers. There are middle school only tournaments in the United States with hundreds, thousands of public forum debaters. It's accessible to high schoolers. It's accessible even to some elementary schoolers. So the point is you can start debate as early as you'd like, and you can also start it relatively late as well. So you're not locked out of doing it. So it's really for a wide range of ages.
Thank you.
Teddy, 2 weeks ago, I believe, it took place a tournament, transatlantic, and we've seen students from Intech Academy, technological school, I believe, in Romanian terminology, and you are doing a very interesting and great job there. We have some middle school students present here. Tell them something about debating in middle school. Why this is important?
Why is debating in middle school important? Well, all of the benefits, one reason is pretty clear. All of the benefits of public forum debate that we've talked about, the English language, the critical thinking, the focus on the evidence, the research, the truth, the focus on the impact, the so what. All of these benefits, you get them earlier. So that's a pretty clear reason. The earlier you start debating, the more experience you get, the better you become. It's also important, middle school, as we all know, are formative years for students. I'd say speaking personally for me, some of my greatest growth happened in middle school. And so it's very critical that at that time of your life, you're forming all of the friendships that public forum forms, forming friendships with partners, with debate teams, that you're forming close relationships with teachers, that you're learning how to think and how to approach the world. Because those are skills that once instilled into you never leave. And so you can keep them and use them for the rest of your life. It's basically an infinite return on investment in terms of years, so to speak. And it's also great thing about middle school debate is you have peers now, right? There are middle schoolers who can debate you in the United States. And there are a lot of middle schoolers who can debate you in the United States. And so if you join debate in middle school, you'll have a lot of opportunities, not only to debate, you'll also get a lot of opportunities to debate across the Atlantic, over Zoom for now, of course, because of COVID, although you never know in the future. And you have a lot of opportunities to make friends with New Yorkers, to learn how things are in America as well. And that holds true for high schoolers too. But it's basically everything good about public forum, you get it earlier, you get it for longer.
Thank you. I've asked you that question because at some moment we talked about what do you learn, what students in a private school in America learns about science and history and humanities. And I understood something. Debate makes a student more interested in some of the topics that he learns at history class or something like that. So it helps, it makes him more interested in some of the things that are taught in middle school and high school.
Of course. Yeah, that is definitely true. I've seen that countless times. We'll be debating on a very important topic, and then the next unit in history happens to be on that topic, and all of a sudden all the debaters have all of this knowledge and contribute in class discussions and really make it a much better unit for everybody. I'll give two examples. One example is we had a debate on air pollution. So kind of like climate change, but not quite climate change, a slightly different branch of atmospheric science. And so for that debate, we learned a lot about the way the atmosphere works, the particles circulate, and so on. Guess what the next unit in biology was? Atmospheric science. So everyone, and that class was the class where like almost everyone did debate. And so we were all super excited and talking about atmospheric science, and we had all of this background knowledge. And it made the teacher's life a lot easier, I will have to say that. Or in history, we were talking about a topic in West Africa. Our next unit was then West Africa. The class discussions were a lot richer. Everyone learned a lot more. There were a lot more ideas we could bring to the table, and it made the teacher's life easier. So yeah, public forum is, in the United States, I would say public forum and other types of debate are really critical to the education experience. You can't take them away without changing the whole system to compensate for that loss.